Welcome to the Vets Connect podcast with your host, Scott McLean.
Welcome to the podcast. I'm Scott McLean. My guest today is Djery Clement. Djery is a Marine veteran. He's alumni at Florida Atlantic University. So what's up, Djery? How you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me. How about yourself?
My pleasure. Doing well, buddy. Doing well. So give the listeners a little background on yourself.
Well, I was born in the islands, primarily the Haiti, and I came to the U.S. when I was 11 years old. Finished my elementary school here, middle school, high school, did a year in college, then I joined the United States military.
Were you an athlete in high school? I think we talked about that.
I was.
Well, talk on it.
In high school, I did cross country, track and field, and I did a little bit of wrestling.
So after high school, you go to college.
Yes, I did cross country for college.
And what happened from there?
Well, from there, and cross country will always have a special place in my heart. And I did a full year at FAU, and then as soon as you are in FAU, you do cross country. You also going to do track, right? Not one and the same, but they complement each other. And while I was throughout that first year, I had an idea about joining the United States military. And I didn't really want to back down on it, and so I did.
And so you joined the Marines. Why the Marines?
To be honest with you, I joined the Marines just so I could see if I could. I thought since, the idea was already set to join the military in general, right? But, you have about 5 branches you can choose from. And I figured if I'm going to do this, I might as well go big. And to be honest, that idea was one that was, to some others, it was a bit crazy because, I could have done any other branch. I could have done any MOS. I could have waited until I finished college in order to go in as an officer. But I was pretty stubborn in terms of that idea. And that's the other thing, too. I chose a combat job. I was artillery when I was in the U.S. Marines. And I figured that there is no better time for me to join if not now, because I wanted to see what type of person I was under pressure. And part of me was also grateful for the opportunities I got when I came to the U.S., and a part of me wanted to pay it forward as well.
What year did you go into the Marines?
2015. In May, as soon as I was done with the second half of the year, I decided to just go straight over there. And the other thing, too, I went in as open contract. I'm sure you know what that was. And they said, oh, well, you can get because I had 4 jobs lined up. It was either infantry, artillery, tanker, or motor C. And they said, well, all those are closed right now, but you can go in as open contract. And it was a bit risky, but I was like, well, if I want to go, I need to go right now. And, as soon as I was done, because I don't want any more time to hinder my decision making. And, so I said, sign me up for open contract, which later on I find out that everyone that does open contract in the U.S. Marines will end up being artillery. So that ended up being a pretty funny joke, right? So, but overall, it's one of those awesome decisions that I will never regret.
Were you deployed?
I was deployed in 2016 and again in 2017. First deployment was in the Middle East and the other was in Japan. And honestly, it was the first deployment. It was a MU in all aspects, right? And we did all of our training with the battery I was with, but it was around that time when a bunch of crazy stuff, which was ISIS related, were going on over there. So my unit ended up going to the Middle East to help out, and that was a heck of an experience because it was also one thing I would like to say is that it was a humbling moment because you end up having an experience that you didn't know it was going to ever happen, right? Because if my future self were to go back to the past and tell my 13, 14-year-old self, hey, you're going to the Middle East as a member of the United States Marine Corps, I'd have been like, that sounds so awesome, and I don't think I believe you. But, here I was with friends that I would die for, which, again, I am grateful that we all came back with 10 fingers, 10 toes, and even more so because I was at a ceremony for World War II veterans, and, compared to what in all unequivocal respect, was they're of the greatest generation, what they went through. I was even appreciative of the opportunity I even had to join the United States military, and that no matter what afflicted us over there, it honestly I felt very blessed and lucky. And then the other deployment was a bit a lot more quote unquote safer, and I had equal amounts of fun because some of the people I went with, they also jumped with me on the second deployment as well.
What was your most interesting experience when you were over in the desert?
It would have to be when there were two moments. Well, three different moments, if I can share that with you. The first one was that it felt a part of me was excited because you felt like you were doing a job that you've been training to do for a majority of your time in the military. And, graduating from boot camp and being a Marine in general, you feel like you're born anew, and you feel like, this is what I was born to do. So that excitement and that thrill, it all culminated into that one single instance, right? One of my second most pivotal moment was I was looking up at the stars in the Middle East, and it was beautiful up there. And it was in a sense symbolic because I was in a country that, wasn't, I was there to help, and it could be better, but there were a lot of conflict going on over there. And I looked up and I thought, wow, no matter what's going on with that country, it's quite beautiful in its aspects, right? And it was raining, and with that same way, and water was I could only sleep on the wet floor. There was nowhere else to sleep, right? And a part of it made everything a lot less bitter, not because of the starry night, but it was also because look at the person to the left and right of me that's also sleeping on the wet, muddy floor. And, we're in this together, and I'm here temporarily. I'm gonna go home after this to where I'm gonna appreciate a nice, running water and, shower and stuff like that. But those people, they get to stay here, and, I should do my best to help them out in any way I can. And my other third experience is when, we were getting shot at, so, a few of it were just, they missed. Thank goodness, right? I mean, that's why I'm here with you, right?
I'm glad we can laugh about that.
Yeah. I mean, you had artillery, raining overhead, and a few of it really made you appreciate things and for what they are. Because if life is unpredictable, but we all owe it to ourselves to do the best that we can, and we should also strive to make a fair amount of time to help one another. That's where the compassion is. And you really get to appreciate the person that's stuck in the foxhole with you, and how much you really love that brother to the left and right. And it's crazy, no matter, and that's the beauty of it, if I may say, Scott, because I know you've experienced it before, is like with the same uniform that we have, no matter the demographic, no matter where we come from, we're all linked by one single objective, and that's the love and compassion and misery we share between us, and that we're all going to make sure we both get each other home safely.
So you finish your 4 years, and you're getting out. And I've been through that transition of, what's next?
Oh, my gosh.
Right? So you get that, right? Now, how old are you? So let the audience know how old you are.
Oh, I am 27 right now.
So you're just a kid, man.
Well, you're aging well yourself.
You're just a kid.
I know.
There's a lot of people out there listening saying, I wish I was 27 again.
It comes with some lower back pains, I'll tell you.
Well, so that comes with what you were doing, right? For that time. So the transition part of it, you were how old when you were getting out?
Oh, man. This is when when I got out, I believe I was like 23. Yeah.
You got your whole life ahead of you, man.
Yeah,
and so you're like, well, what's next?
What's next? It was a giant question mark because it was the end of a saga and the beginning of an unforeseen one, right? And I already had a plan in mind because, during my last year of transition, I figured I did my fair share, and a part of me was like, oh man, if I choose this job, I may not get there, and I want it to be closer to help family a bit, right? So I figured, what, why not? If I'm ever needed, I'll just cut my hair, cut the beard, and just don the armor right away, right? And I knew I wanted to go back to school, and I already knew what my major was going to be. But I'm going to do this by myself, quote unquote, right? because I used to wake up, little retrospect back in the military. You wake up in the barracks, you're gonna go to eat with that person. You're gonna go train with them. You out there in the rain with them. You go back to school, and I already know I went to college before, but this was not the same me that went in. And even though the military has a way of, and I've seen it before, and I think you may have, the military has a way of, for the most part, amplifying your already better traits of yourself and might exacerbate the worst traits of yourself, right? And when I got out, I figured, well, nobody else is going to accounting with you. This one is on your own, right? And and that was where the veterans office come in, because I did not know how to. I knew how to register, but I'm like, well, I'm a veteran now, so where do I go from here?
This is at FAU.
This was at FAU, yeah. I already knew I was gonna go there, and I went online, did my research, I found the phone, and I called, and guess what? The person that picked up the phone, because I said, hey, I want to go back to FAU. How do I register for the fall term? He's like, oh, well, where are you from? I was like, oh, it was in the USMC. He's like, oh, you're a Marine? Devil Dog? And then as soon as he said that, I was like, yep, that's another Devil Dog on the line. He's like, yeah, come over. I'll help you with everything. And, I got my keys, got share my car, because, it was like 3 p.m., so I can get there before they close. I went there, and he helped me with all the paperwork. Turns out he was a gunny that's active duty, trying to get his degree. He was either to be an officer or an officer or something. Either way, all the love to him. Right. And here's what it felt like. It felt like a little piece of the military was extrapolated from, my past life right into FAU. Right. And, and I couldn't make friends. I've always had the ability to make friends easily, And also I went back and did cross country again. So that was another thing. And, I don't know if you've ever done cross country or seen those cross country cats. I've always been.
I'm not built for cross country.
Well, I mean, what did you do, if I may ask? Was it football or anything?
Yeah, the usual.
Yeah, no. Well, remind me not to play football with you. I only play games I have a high chance of winning, my friend. But no, so I was part of the veteran owls, and I had camaraderie in cross country.
I'm sorry to interrupt. The veteran owls. Explain that.
Yeah, so we have the Military and Veterans Student Success Center, which is kind of like the professional office where they help you with all the paperwork, right? All the admin stuff, we're here for you on that. But they also work in tandem with the Veteran Owls, which is a registered organization / club at FAU. And not only do we help you with that stuff, but we also introduce fun activities that can be done and any other additional information to make Veteran Owls, hey, I know you're a veteran. I know you had a past life before. I know you got your personal life outside of this. But hey, you at FAU. Enjoy your time while you have it. And that's an advice I always do my best to give out, whether or not you're a veteran. Enjoy your time while you're at FAU. There's a whole bunch of things you can get involved into, right?
So the Owls is a reference to their mascot.
Yes.
Florida Atlantic University Owls, right? And is the Veteran Owls, it's a club, right?
Yes.
Are they all veterans in there? Is it specifically for veterans? Or do they let non-veterans kind of come in and learn, or just be part? How does that work?
Yeah, so it's not just veterans. It is you either it can be spouses, it can be dependents. Oh, we are welcoming to everyone at all. It's just we call it Veterans Owls because it was a way for veterans to get involved and stuff like that. But no, everyone is absolutely welcome, especially since there's no need to fun activity is something that's meant to be shared. And when I was the vice president of the Veteran Owls, I've always worked in tandem with other clubs, and we always had combination events.
So you networked with other clubs.
Exactly.
So let me ask you: the veteran population, is there a wide age range between them, or is it mostly younger veterans that are in the Veteran Owls?
Oh man, surprisingly, and this is my guess, so do not take this at face value. I think that for the most part, it's half of it is people that are older than I am, right? And then the other half is dependents. So usually the dependent side are like the younger side, because their parents they either don't go to college or they just pass the benefits on to their heirs. The ones that are veterans, they're usually in like their 30s, 30s, maybe 40s, or they're going in there for their masters, or they figured, hey, I'm done with this part of my life. Let me go in there. Because we've always had little functions and stuff. And I've seen and I've looked at, each and every one of them. There's a good size that are around my age or younger, but quite a bit is people that are older.
So let me get your insight on something.
What's up?
There seems to be a shortage with organizations like American Legion, VFW, Veterans of Foreign War, and other organizations like that to recruit this generation. What do you think is missing? What do you think is a way to get the attention of younger veterans? Or is it just a case of they have life going on and being a veteran isn't a priority in their life? They have to start kind of moving forward and getting their careers started. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, absolutely.
So give me some insight on what you think, how they can get their attention. This is this question, trust me, it's the magic bullet. No one can figure this out that I've talked to. And I belong to the Kiwanis Club. They recruited me because I went to speak as a veteran, and they're not a young group. So again, what's your insight on that? Or do you think it is what it is?
It is. So that is that kind of question is not, in order to get the true answer from a veracity of sources, you're not gonna get just one answer. And from my personal experience, as not just a member of people that I've volunteered quite many times, and I've seen people volunteer, and I've seen people not volunteer, and I think the top 3 reasons, right, of you don't, there's kind of a low number, is, well, for one, I believe it's social media, not the lack of social media, but the abundance of it. And because this generation, and somebody, feel free to disagree with me on this, there is an oversaturation of information going on, so a lot of it get lost. And 2, I know if I say I'm gonna do something, if I'm gonna volunteer, that's my word. I'm putting my word on the line that I'm gonna be there for it. And volunteering and participating in activities is only as potent as the amount of people willing to do it, right? And I think a lot of the times people get so lost in the idiosyncrasies of life. You wake up, you go to school, you listen to a professor, you go home, you do your homework, and that's it. And a lot of times I think that's, it might be a bit debilitating to the mind, especially for veterans, because, they feel a little bit alienated because this is a whole different chapter. And, you're not going to say, oh, I'm done with class, you're going to go to chow with me, right? You don't get that. No, you're done. This is all on you. You got to go home. And especially if you have kids, right? And then the other portion is, it's up. When I was in office in the Veterans Owls, I was always doing my best to basically just throw all the information I could at them via email, and especially this is the same advice I gave as an advisor now, is you have all the emails. If there's always an event you're planning, or there's an activity going on, or some information, throw it at them as much as you can, maybe 2-3 times a week. And then they'll finally oh, you know what? I've seen this email for the 3rd time. I might as well go and see what's up. And then you go and you have such a great time. I remember one time, Scott, if I may give you a quick story.
Absolutely, my friend.
I was at a barbecue that was held up by the Veterans Owls and the FAU Community Center. It was a small little get-together at the beach, right? And I've met a veteran that says, oh, this is my first time at this event, and I'm a junior. And I was like, what? As soon as I was a freshman, I knew about it. But, I wasn't flabbergasted in a negative sense, but I was quite surprised, right? Because I said, and, the person has a wife and kids and stuff like that. Hey, bring your wife and kids too, And I think a lot of the times we get so lost in the mundane activities of our lives, and we get lost in our phones. I'm sorry. It's a tool, but the tool can be poison too. It's a lot of times we tend to forget that, hey, you got to have some human connection in some shape or form. And, and I don't know if you ever noticed that, because if I believe you're in the Air Force, correct?
Yes.
You meet another Air Force person, all of a sudden, you're all E3s once again in the same uniform, just joking and laughing about everything, right? And, it doesn't take much to have a fun activity and just kicking it back. But I think it's all those 3 things: the oversaturation, the willingness, But also that willingness depends on how much information you're willing to give them in all altruistic aspects, right? So
So social media, the cell phones, the computer, they create a disconnect from maybe wanting to go out and be part of a group. They don't have to go out. They can stay in their house or they can stay in their apartment. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah.
Or do you think that that's the thing?
I think that's one of the major problems, yes. But it's not something that can be easily, how shall I say, mitigated. It's also up to you to figure that out as well. I'll give you a really cool example. I think it was my second year in the military, and the lights went out for a few hours. And all of a sudden, we all of us were dropped off for our video games, and we were just hanging out by the stairwell, just sitting and chatting. And as soon as the lights went back on, yeah, they went back to playing video games. But you're not gonna believe the amount of fun we were having while we were out there. And then I remember when I was in my first deployment, we couldn't have any phones whatsoever, right? That was, you couldn't. You will not believe the amount of conversations we were having. It was splendid. It was intoxicating. And I don't think any phones or any selfies or any social media apps could ever overtake that. And I think a lot of the times people owe it to themselves to go out and meet others. I think we say that stuff because it sounds like the right thing to say. That's like a superficial saying. But if anything, it's you owe it to yourself, to go out there and get some connections. And, not in the sense of professional, but it's really good for your mind. Right? And I don't think you can disagree with that. What's your take?
No, I don't disagree. I think, as I've always said, cell phones, social media, technology, it's a blessing and it's a curse. Mm-hmm. And that's the curse side of it. There's a disconnect. There's no accountability. There's no desire to leave your bubble to go meet other people. I just had a conversation with somebody I interviewed earlier today. It was kind of a off-the-air, funny conversation. And it was about that same type of disconnect in dating. So people, when I was growing up, you had to go out to meet somebody. Now they just, I don't know, I guess it's a swipe left, swipe right.
Yeah.
I wouldn't know. I'm glad I wouldn't know that. So that creates the disconnect. And I think that grows into every aspect of their life after a while. So now these organizations like the VFW and American Legion and maybe even the Veteran Owls to a certain extent and other clubs would have more people involved if they didn't have technology. They didn't have cell phones, the addiction that everybody has. And this is me included. I am not shielded from that. There's certain things I want to look at every day, or it's part of my routine, right? It becomes part of my day. So what you just said was profound, how your generation, so you were 24 years old, and you guys had the best conversations. You had camaraderie. You had it all there. And then the lights came on.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's like you watch that movie where this group of people get together and they have this one great night together. It's like this craziness and insane. It's funny. It's emotional. And then the sun comes up and they all go home. And it's like they won't get back together again.
Yeah. And I think, if I may add to what you were saying,
Yeah.
And I'm going to actually give a shout out to Mr. Argo Trade.
That he's putting in some work, man.
Yeah, he set up. Well, that's all the more reasons too, because he always helps out. He sets up events for veterans, which is that's a million thanks to him. He sent me out an invite he set up the St. Patrick's Day parade that was being held in Boca.
Yeah, Herd Foundation was leading the parade with the horses.
Oh my goodness,
yeah.
that was such a fun time.
We had a blast, man. He did a great job with that.
And the beautiful thing about that, I was having so much fun, I forgot to take pictures.
Oh, but hey, you know what? That's okay, man. That's okay. You got the memories.
Yeah, I got maybe 2 or 3 pictures, and then when I was done, I had 15 emails I missed, but I was like, well, I didn't really miss much. But after a while, if you really think about it, it's like, why would I watch this stuff on TV or on Instagram when I can just be part of it, And then you see people waving flags, talking to each other, conversing, eating with each other, and you would not believe what you have in common with other people if you don't go out, right? I mean, we're all the same. we're all living the same lives in different households. I think a lot of the times, it's different for kids, right? And it's different for the veterans too, because I think for veterans, they just feel like, there's nobody that's with them in general. But I'm just like, hey, you start reaching out and, because it's up to you also, to put yourself out there. You'll find another veteran too, and you'll realize how much you have in common, right? And I think it's the same for this younger generation that are not veterans. If you go out and, partake in some activity, you'll find out that there are other people like you that just want to have fun and that will bring some positivity into your life. And what you see on social media is not always true. And I'm not the first person to say that. This is not a revolutionary way of thinking, right? And I always tell people, hey, don't compare, your play-by-play to somebody's highlights. Because a lot of the times the thing you see on social media may not be only the positive things or only the negative things. It's a mixture. Life is all gray. So, but how can you find out? It's not going to be through social media. You got to see it with your own two eyes. You owe it to yourself to do that. The curiosity is intrinsic in every human being. You got to own it.
Do you think the curiosity gets dulled by social media?
I think social media not only dulled curiosity, it twisted it. And it also robbed us of our imagination, right? In terms of, I remember when I'm a bit of a thrill seeker, and I can only watch something so much before I figure out, okay, I want to do this. For example, I love skydiving, and maybe I watch a YouTube video of skydiving. I'm just like, man, I'm tired of watching that person having fun. I want to see what it's all about. Much to the concerns of, the loved ones in my life, like my mom and grandma, all the love to her. But how can you experience that? How can you test yourself? And if you don't go out there and try, right? With all proper judgment and risk, of course, right? But it's up to you. And who knows who you might meet out there? You might meet the love of your life. You're not going to meet the love of your life if you sit on the couch.
Well, I didn't meet the love of my life, who I'm married to right now, through technology.
Yeah.
I met her at the Barnes and Nobles across the street from FAU.
Right. Oh, that's right.
That's kind of an old school thing. Well, you know what, man? You're 27, but you are wise beyond your years, my friend.
I got a long ways to go.
And you do. And it's going to be a nice ride. We've established a friendship. I look forward to watching you become that CPA.
Oh, well, knock on wood, right?
Well, yeah. Tell us a little about that. Where's that going?
Okay, well, I think a lot of the times in life, one thing I keep learning that's unequivocal in all aspects is life always goes to show you how very little you don't know. And via the military, I learned so much because you end up traveling. You learn about how people are. And I met you. I didn't know about this whole equestrian stuff, but now I'm excited about, wanting to try it. With the whole CPA thing, when I got out, normally on my resume, you can't say that you've been running around in the desert for 4 years, right? That's not... maybe you can. I don't know what type of job you're going to get with that. But I always knew one thing. I was always good at managing my money. And I took my passion of wanting to learn about money and my love for organizing. And I figured, you know what? You put two and two together. Let's try accounting. And I did accounting when I was in high school, which I loved it. And as soon as I got out, I already had that plan in mind. And I did not see myself wanting to learn anything else. And I knocked out that 4-year degree because I like to finish things as soon as possible, much to my detriment and much to my benefit, right? And I knocked it out in 2.5 years. And I also met some great friends because I was part of this accounting scholars program, which had people that I consider were smarter than I was in there, and we all graduated together. We were all in the same class together, that's the great thing, Mr. Scott. It was that accounting scholars program. It was a program meant to put accounting students with a lot of potential, and we go to the same classes together. And I wanted to, was like, you know what? This kind of has a really cool meaning to it, just like the military, how we do everything together.
Camaraderie.
Yeah, that camaraderie, exactly. So I figured, you know what? Why not? And let me tell you, Scott, that was a tough program.
I can only imagine, my friend. I can only imagine.
It was early mornings and very late nights. But my goodness, one of the best things ever is that misery loves companies. And I had some amazing professors, don't get me wrong, but it's accounting. If it was easy, everybody would do it, right?
Yeah.
And And I had some loved ones that supported me, like my mom.
Okay, let's talk about your
Yeah.
mom. Let's talk about your mom because I see the look on your face.
Yeah. Well, that's my grandma too. So, shout out to her, right?
Yeah, so you had mentioned your mom in our conversation, and what part did she play? I know moms play a big part in every boy's life, every girl's life, everyone's, but you kind of came over with her, and it was a struggle, right?
Yeah, I mean the place we come from is not necessarily it wasn't sunshine and rainbows,
Right,
know. So,
right.
and I'm sure you know
Yeah.
a thing or two about struggle.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So my mom, she is the epitome of what a mom should do for her kids, and it wasn't just me; it was me and my sister. My sister and I, she's 5 years older than I am, so she's kind of like my second mom in a sense. But it's she did not make it to school. She only made it past 6th grade, but my word, she is the epitome of, if you're not willing to make sacrifices for somebody you bring into this life, then you most likely don't deserve to be a parent. And she was always my biggest supporter. And and that was the thing. She was one of the first people. I mean, there's a second mom I have that I ended up meeting later on. She's my mom in every aspect. She's in
Yeah.
Utah. That's a story for another time.
Okay.
Yeah, but she so my biological mom, when she found out I was joining, and when I told her I was joining the military, as a mom, of course, you're apprehensive, and technically, as the son of an immigrant, you're kind of like pretty much almost the first to do a lot of things, right? But she believed in me because I was her son. She didn't know what it was about. She didn't know what I was gonna get myself into. You know the stigma and everything like that. But she believed that I could do it. And I didn't do it for her. I did it for myself because at the end of the day, it's my life, right? And I have to be held accountable for what I do here. And she was a bit apprehensive and saddened by the fact, but she had such faith and belief. It is magnanimous. I mean, she's when it comes to faith, that lady is exemplary. And I love her with all my heart. And no matter what decision I take, even when I graduated with my bachelor's and my master's, I can tell in her eyes that, a part of me, Scott, I might be crazier. And I was very proud with those accomplishments, but I think she's more proud of it than I could ever be.
Oh, she is.
Right?
She absolutely is.
I mean, if she was here, maybe one day you'll get to meet her, right? But that lady she's awesome. I think in some aspect she's stronger than I am.
Yeah.
And I think in some aspect, if she had the same opportunities I had, she'd probably get a lot further than I could. She got her citizenship.
Beautiful.
And I think, I know I'm going off tangent here because it's my mom, right?
That's fine.
Yeah.
That's
Talking
fine.
to her like she's my kid, but she's, at one point when she was studying for her citizenship, I will tell you with certainty, and I hate giving out certainties, but I will tell you with that certainty that she knew more about the U.S. history more than your average high school kid. Because I used to help her
Probably
study.
more than most Americans, unfortunately. You can say it. I'll say it.
We get that
Yeah.
can is not
Yeah.
entirely it's a bit bitter in truth,
Right.
but it's not wrong, right?
Right.
And I used to help her study because the citizenship had 100 questions in it, right? She got 99 out of 100
Beautiful.
in there, right? And a part of me always thinks like, my word, that is quite something,
Yeah.
right? And
For a woman that only had a 6th grade education.
yeah, but to be honest, her that natural intellect that she has, it pales in comparisons to her actual. I mean, no, what she finishes pales in comparison to her actual intellect.
Yeah.
So there
Well, I'm
you
going to tell you without doubt that your mom is the strongest person you've ever met in your life. That's a fact.
Oh yeah.
That's a fact. And there's a lot of moms that are like that they just step up,
Oh, absolutely.
and they sacrifice. And they do more, and you'll never know. They'll never tell you
Yeah.
the struggle that they had
Without
mentally, physically, emotionally. They'll never tell you.
Oh, absolutely.
And you don't need to know. We don't need to know,
Yeah.
So with that, my friend, thank you for your time. This conversation started as it's a veterans podcast,
Yeah.
but it went in a beautiful direction. I have no problem with this. I think it was very interesting. I think your insight and your perspective is spot on. I think you're very in tune, you're very self-aware, and you have a bright future ahead of you, my friend.
Oh, I hope so. I have a lot of great people in my life as well, like my second mom, my second dad, my grandma, who's all my love goes to her. She's a wickedly smart lady. I call her
Grandmothers are a whole nother conversation, my friend.
I call her gangster grandma, but yeah, GG's to her, right?
They're a whole nother conversation, grandmothers.
Yeah, but it's up to us to go out and venture and meet people that can be willing to amplify our lives, and because human beings are built for connection. We're wired to it.
Right.
You can prove that religiously, psychologically, scientifically, whatever. But I get a part of me is happy and grateful of the fact that I was always move forward toward what I thought was right for my own ambition and discipline, and meet equal people that. And if I met bad people, I'll learn from it in some shape or form, right? But
Absolutely.
Yeah, but
You just have to be willing to listen.
you have to be willing to listen.
Yeah.
It's a working effort.
That's it.
It's always a constant.
It's not easy.
Yeah, it's a constant working effort, but you gotta let it ruminate and think about it, and because life is not always gonna be your friend. I say, it will. It's not. And you have cards, and you have to play them how you see fit, right? Just have to be willing to be upfront about accepting the responsibility for your actions. All right.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, that's Djery Clement. I'm going to call him a kid. To me, he's 27.
I don't think I'm gonna be turned down at the bar.
But I'm just going to say a kid who was, like I said, wise beyond his years. Some would probably call you an old soul. Again, I look forward to watching your progress. Thank you for your service as a Marine. And once a Marine, always a Marine. I always seem to be interviewing Marines lately.
Really?
I don't know why.
Oh my gosh!
These Marines, I can't find an Air Force person.
You can't find an Air Force person?
It's not that easy for some reason.
Oh my gosh!
I think Marines might have more interesting stories. I'm going to edit that out.
Because if another Air Force person hears that, oh my gosh!
Oh, I don't care. Then have them step up.
Well, it sounds like you took the wrong branch. You should have been one of us.
Well, so quick story with that.
Oh, let me hear it.
When I went through Law Enforcement Academy, it was with Marines. It was at Lackland Air Force Base, so Marines came to Lackland, and there was two or three Air Force instructors and two Marine instructors, two gunny sergeants. So we trained with the Marines, the classes, the PT, and I would not let them win. PT, they always try to outrun it. And I was not a runner back then, but I stayed up with them and I did everything they did. I was like, that's just not going to happen, right? I got to represent. So when the time came for graduation, one of the Marines that I became friendly with came up to me and he gave me his anchor and globe.
No way.
Off his cap, yeah. And he said, you should have been a Marine. I said, well, I should have been a lot of things, but I'm going to be a canine handler, so that was the way to go. And I actually had one of those gunny sergeants put my badge on, not an Air Force instructor. No, I had a Marine instructor put that on. Oh. Yeah, so I've always kind of had this intertwining with Marines.
Well, I'm happy you did because, and look at it, maybe you may have had a different, whether good or bad experience if you didn't go, but let's be happy for what we have now.
Absolutely. Huh? Yeah. Absolutely. So let me do this outro. So, well, that was Djery Clement, Marine veteran and future CPA. I want to thank you for listening. If you like it, share it. If you're interested in maybe wanting to come on the podcast, you can email me at vetsconnectpodcast@gmail.com. If you're a nonprofit that thinks that they might want to get an episode, email me at vetsconnectpodcast@gmail.com. We built another bridge today. This was a very interesting bridge. Great conversation. And as I always say, you'll hear me on Monday.
The Vets Connect podcast is produced by Scott McLean at the KOFB studio in Boca Raton, Florida. If you would like to contact us, You can email us at vetsconnectpodcast@gmail.com.